Empire. Unlocking the ticketing marketplace.
You've sold all these season tickets, they need to remove a seat. You see kind of what I'm getting at is just the management of a 25 or even 100,000 person seated arena that might also have general admission, and now you're trying to sell food and beverage. The permutations of all those different things to manage become really complicated.
That's Robert Davari, CEO of Tixr, who is finding paths into the ticketing marketplace using modern technology. This is the Future Sport Podcast. I'm Bram Weinstein. The Department of Justice is looking into the practices, pricing, and fees by the dominant players in the ticketing marketplace as the government looks into these monopolistic entities. Groups like Tixr are trying to carve out their space and believe the difference maker isn't just access, but better underlying technology. Our guest this week is Robert Davari. He's the CEO of Tixr, which is one of the fastest growing privately held primary ticketing and event commerce marketplaces in the world. Hey, Robert, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Good, Bram. Nice to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Tixr is not new. It's actually over a decade old, but why don't you introduce our audience to it? What do you all do?
Well, the best way to think of us is, we're an evolution on, the ticketing systems that you all have been used to. What we've strived to do is build a modern version, a new car, I'd say, of the kind of the traditional incumbent at-scale ticketing companies, and we specifically focus on big, so big sports, arena sports, festivals, big venues. It's a more enterprise approach to the ticketing market.
Okay, so let's use your analogy. What was wrong with the car that you wanted to fix?
That's a really good question. So, there's some things that are wrong with the car that I think everybody knows, and it's given the news all the time. And then there's some things in the cars that I think people don't know could be possible. So, I mean, the first thing is most of that, especially the big brand, the large scale ticketing companies that are operating today, the underlying technology, and a lot of people don't know this, is over 30 years old, right? So they were founded at a time that was, pre-cloud computing, pre-social media, pre-mobile transactions, and with especially with software, technology progresses so quickly that 30 years is a long time. And once you build something, it's very difficult to unwind those things and build new things, right? So what ends up happening is, you have a lot to be desired in terms of innovation and being able to even move things forward. So it's not even always that, the established kind of larger ticketing companies don't want to change. It's like they can change. It's very difficult. So, kind of like our tentpole number one was just build a new operating system on new technology so we can move faster and build it in a way that's aligned, especially from fan experience to other systems today that are very elegant to use and easy to use, and just bottom line create a better experience, right? But it all starts with building a new new underlying operating system. So that's kind of the first thing. The second thing that we really wanted to do was create efficiency, right? So again, this is a hot button topic right now in the news, and there's even legislation being passed or introduced around this. But there's this dichotomy in ticketing between the primary and secondary market that's quite inefficient, right? It causes an increase in fees. It causes things like fake tickets and all kinds of issues for fans. And the secondary market has its place for sure, and it's been growing, and there's actually been quite a bit of innovation in that space. But what we wanted to do was and this is kind of like along the lines of what could be possible. We wanted to really find ways to bridge the gap between the primary and secondary market, and we are a primary system. We're the exclusive ticketing system for the vast majority of our clients. and to make it easier for people to resell and just have different ways to access tickets if something, let's say, for example, sold out, right? And then the third major tenet was, and we kind of learned this one going on, is that ticketing, if you think of live, at scale live entertainment, like a sports event or a concert or whatever that people, just love to go to and have these great experiences at, there's a lot of different ways to experience that. Those, tickets are just part of it. You also have merchandise. You also have a culinary experience when you're there. And increasingly, there are just very novel experiences like, behind the scenes and backstage and, tours and on and on. And these experiences aren't, right now very elegantly integrated within, the existing systems that exist. So, we really have been heavily focused on, what we call beyond the ticket, right? It's all the things that you can do and all the ways you can interact with a live event that aren't tickets. And we really, really worked on implementing that within the platform. So those are the core three tenets. And then there's obviously, a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipe that we're excited to build out.
All right, let me talk to you about a couple of those things. Let me start with the last one that you brought up. We've talked to a lot of teams here in this podcast about turning their ticket into a digital passport where it's either experiences or offers or, as you put, food options and all the different things that go along with being a fan and having access. Are you thinking about it the same way, that you're not just accessing a ticket for someone, you're accessing a lot of different opportunities in the experiential world?
Yeah. We think of ticketing as just one touch point, and not to understate it, it's the most complicated and probably the most important touch point within the commerce journey of a say sports fan. But it is just one touch point, right? The primary touch point, I think you nailed it, is the fan's relationship with the sports team and all the different ways that they can interact with that sports team. Ticketing being, one of the driving forces to get people to, engage with a system or commerce are the things that we're really focused on, and the longer term fan relationship too.
Let me go back to the word you used there, complicated. The more and more we talk to teams, the more we talk to people like yourself, others in this space, whether it's with a Ticketmaster or it's with a company like yours competing with Master, the word complicated comes up a lot. And this should be a simple process, shouldn't it? I want to go to X event. Here is money. I want ticket. And for some reason, it's not that. Like, what do you think happened, like, in the process that made buying a ticket a very difficult thing to do?
So it's funny because we came into this market as, bright-eyed, tech product obsessed founders that knew very little about how the industry actually works. And the reason it's complicated is, and the reason you don't see a tremendous amount of innovation on the primary markets, and you still have incumbents that have been around for a long time, is we peeled the onion, and we're still peeling onions. Is the functionality that's required to operate like a large scale arena or stadium for a sports team is incredibly complicated. A lot of it is the back end, right? So building out the seats and assigning different price codes to the seats and, supporting season tickets. And, now what happens if, you've sold all these season tickets and you need to remove a seat. You see kind of what I'm getting at. It gets the management of a 25 or even 100,000 person seated arena that might also have general admission. And, now you're trying to sell food and beverage. The permutations of all those different things to manage become really complicated. So what's happened over time is you have companies that have built enough to get these venues by, I'd say. They've built the functionality over the course of 30 years, right? So it's, you have to be able to support the teams in order to fix the fan experience. So what people don't see is, it's kind of like a glacier analogy. They'll see the user interface, but what they don't see is the giant glacier behind it that actually manages that user interface, right? And when you're talking from a fan perspective, when you're talking about, say, reserved seats, and there are, say, a lot of people trying to buy the same seats at the same time, as you could imagine, you now have challenges with making sure, you're not overselling or double selling and stuff like that. So it is quite a complex commerce challenge that's very different than any other type of commerce that's in the market today, right? It's not as simple as buying a laptop or something like that. Because the other thing about ticketing, by the way, is it's similar to hotels and airlines. It's something that it goes live, and even more challenging is it goes live, and at a specific point you have like an on sale, and you have a lot of people trying to flood to get everything at the same time, and then the tickets are worth nothing after a certain date,
Yeah.
right? Kind of like it's like leaving a seat open is not good for it, or a room open in the hotel industry. That creates a whole nother dynamic to how you have to build the system. But that's why I was saying it's a complicated thing. It's a challenging overall problem to solve.
Future Sport is a presentation of Empire Media, a B2B and B2C podcast and digital company dedicated to making your business or brand be heard. Internal or external content creation that will have a lasting impact on your strategy. Consulting, creation, and production, all to help you effectively communicate your message in any marketplace. Learn more at empiremedia.com, AMPIRE media.com. And let me touch on something else you mentioned, that when you got into this, you didn't have a background in this industry. You had a background in entrepreneurship and technology. What drew you to this, and what have you learned over the last 10 plus years about this industry?
Yeah, I mean, look, what drew me to it was, a multitude of things. So first of all, the other businesses I'd run were in industries that I wasn't particularly passionate about, and I love live music, I love live sports. I just love the live experience. And some of the best times I've had in my life, and I think most people can attest to this, or the times you talk about with your children or your friends, or you bond with your friends, or at events, right? It's a really important part of the human experience. And I tell everybody, COVID was a really good example of that, right? Is that, people really wanted to be together and they could not. It's just a fundamental driving core experience for humans. And so I definitely was very passionate about the live experience. And then if you start, just like, again, this is a common frustration to this day, if you start trying to, get access to these experiences that are so important to you and your friends and your family and stuff like that, and it's challenging, and there's friction, and sometimes it's just unfair. It causes a lot of discontent, which comes out in papers. And 10, 11 years ago, when we were looking at this problem, the exact same frustrations that exist today existed then.
Yeah.
So you have a combination of a general passion for live entertainment, and then you see discontent. And, we're the tech guys that we thought we had the goods to come and fix it. We knew that, when you looked at the systems that were out there, it's a very, very challenging, complicated, and, just the competitive landscape, should I say, is unusually difficult for a variety of reasons. But we thought it was worthwhile, and that there weren't any, what we thought, phenomenal products out there. So, we decided to give it a run. We're like, if somebody builds a really fantastic product, and we have the stamina to go out there and do it, and the goods to do it, we're going to have success. And if we succeed at scale, we'll have hopefully solved, or at least created a viable option from a product perspective for something that's been really plaguing people for a long time. Right, so that was it, and we jumped in and started building.
Yeah, and I'm with you on the event part of it. I just took my family to France to see Taylor Swift. I felt it was a live event situation that was historic, and we wanted to share that for the rest of our lives together. The issue was getting tickets in the United States was so cumbersome and so difficult and so overly expensive that we flew to Europe. And I think you've probably learned through this experience like how that's gone. Let me ask you about you made mention of legislation, and obviously there's lawsuits. The DOJ is involved. With the behemoth companies like Ticketmaster and Live Nation. What is just your general takeaway about what's happening from a government perspective about the ticketing marketplace?
I think anything that spurs innovation and unlocks kind of legacy business models that aren't, manifesting in a way that's positive for society, especially when there's so much angst and things don't seem to change. I think it's a good thing, right? So where, there's actually, there's state level legislation, there's, the federal legislation, and we keep an eye on it. But and again, we're pro anything that's going to open up competition. And even for the incumbents, these guys have a lot of money and a lot of understanding of the marketplace. I think it's good for them to do more and to build more things. And, I'm a big product person and tech person. I genuinely believe that technology can change lives and advance societies. And, we're seeing it in the transportation industry, in the hotel industry, in the food industry. It's changing the fabric of how people actually live, I think for the positive. And whatever, the government can do to spur that change, I think is a positive thing. And when government has intervened in the past, it's not always great, but when they have, and and innovation has come out of it, I think it's been a really positive thing. So that's that. But with that said, we're just, as our company, we're heads down just building products and servicing our clients. That's what we focus on. We're solving problems, like real world problems, and that's what we're focused on. We're not I don't wake up every day trying to change the laws to make to make things easier. I wake up every day trying to build the best product that we can to solve real problems.
You've addressed that you think you have a better option for functionality. And I would assume you've thought about fairness and access, because that's a big frustration. Taylor Swift is a good example of that it's hard to get tickets to see a large event that's sought after like that one was, and many are. Let me ask you about the other third thing that is obviously the huge frustration for people who access tickets: fees. How are you and your company thinking about the fees that you charge a customer to access tickets?
Yes, I have an interesting perspective on this. So first of all, our fees are generally lower, right? So we're a leaner company, and we are generally lower on the fees. The second thing is fees are the industry. The ticketing companies don't always, the fees that people see aren't always what we make. And that's kind of a known open secret that our clients, which are the venues or the artists or whatever, they do share in those fees. So that's kind of a second thing to note. But here's where I think my perspective is a little bit different. I mean, there's a lot of industries, there's a lot of products that people are using all the time that actually have really high fees, like, Uber and Grubhub, and these companies have really high fees, right? And they're built in, and they, weave them into pricing, and, you sometimes see things inflated at the end. But I think where ticketing is a little bit different is that, first of all, people are willing to pay for services rendered and pay fees for them if they believe they have a fair and efficient shot at that service, right? So like if people think that they're being taken advantage of or surprised and all that kind of stuff, then I think that's when you start getting negative sentiment. But I don't think I think especially in today's real time pricing and mobile commerce age, I think people are pretty used to paying a market price for a service. I really don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is that the systems that are out there right now aren't doing a particularly good job of creating a great fan experience and also creating fair access to tickets. When you try to go in there, you just can't get one, or there's no viable option. You have a problem. The second issue, which some of this stuff is trying to get addressed in the legislature, the secondary market companies that are really think of them as like super brokers. They make really high fees. It's like 25, 30% sometimes. And they're not the owners, the vast majority of the time, of the primary inventory. So what they're doing is there are deceptive practices where they'll advertise a price and get surprised with a fee at the end. I think that's what's frustrating for consumers that are trying to decide on choice. And I think there's, again, that's why I think in California, they just rolled out like an all-in pricing round. They've done it in New York, and I expect more states to follow suit. So that is a reality. But yeah, I mean, those are my thoughts on fees. But with all that said, I mean, we try to keep fees as low as possible. We have guidelines for for our clients on let's not go over this and all that kind of stuff. And then more broadly, our mission is to create a really fair, elegant, seamless fan experience that we think is going to hopefully make the entire process more fair more pleasurable for fans.
Robert Davari is the CEO of Tixr. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Brand. Appreciate the time.
on the next Future Sport. How teams and leagues are connecting with their fans and keeping their attention.
In the marketing landscape, grab attention, but more importantly, or as importantly, retain that attention. So if you're doing all the hard work to promote an activation and gather the attention or earn the attention of a consumer or a fan, why not try and drive as much return on investment as you can out of that and actually retain that consumer or fan for a longer period of time. So nurture and grow those relationships once you have them. And that's what the platform does out of the box.
That's Joel Steele, co-founder and CEO of Como Technologies, where keeping fans engaged is his goal in business. That will do it for this episode. As always, the future is now. This is the Future Sport Podcast. I'm Bram Weinstein.